The very best 3D modelers have a good understanding of how the tools inside of our 3D modeling application are going to support and enhance our 3D modeling workflow. And I want to start talking a little bit about modifiers, specifically in the context of making the basic simple shape here, our mirror modifier. Now, we talked a little bit about this in a previous video in the last module, but I wanted to spend some time talking about it in detail today because it really is the best way of working with geometry that needs to be the same on one side of the x-axis and then on the other. Now, previously, our duplication and our mirroring sequence was almost entirely reliant upon duplicating an object and then mirroring that object across the x-axis. Now, let me show you what I'm talking about. I have, let's just do it here with the knee, or excuse me, the elbow of my little bear here. Now, I want you to pay real close attention. The origin point for our object is way down here. It's right there, okay? This origin point is super important because in every sense, this origin point determines where the computer is going to mirror this geometry across. So we need to keep an eye out for this. Now, if you're having an issue with your origin point, don't know where it is, or maybe you need to change it, here's a couple suggestions. Use your 3D cursor. Your 3D cursor is going to be your best friend when it comes to working with the mirroring tools. Your 3D cursor is this little target looking thing, and it's right there inside of my viewport. That target is going to help us, is the 3D cursor, and it's going to help us understand where we can place our origin automatically. So the origin point for my little kneecap is already down there. If yours isn't, if yours is like, I don't know, maybe in the middle of your sphere, okay, which is fine, here's a quick way of getting it back to that cursor. It's in the Object pull-down menu, Set Origin, and we're going to do Origin to 3D Cursor, okay? And then, boop, you can see the little orange dot that represents the origin point for this object very quickly and automatically goes to the location of your 3D cursor. Which brings up the next challenge. Well, what if your 3D cursor is in the wrong spot? What if your 3D cursor is way on the other side of your three-dimensional scene? How can we get it to the origin, the dead center of our three-dimensional universe, so that we can use this origin to 3D cursor tool inside of our toolbox? Well, here's the easy way, okay? If you click the N key, N as in November, it's going to bring out this little palette on the right side of your viewport. And down here, I'm in the View tab. Down here at the bottom of the View tab, we have a category that's devoted to the location of our 3D cursor. So if yours is way off over here at 6.2 meters or wherever, you can just zero all these out. And that's the easy, quick way. There's also some keyboard shortcuts, but I like using the manual flyout menus from time to time. Okay, so my cursor and my origin point are now at the center. This is what we had to do in the past using a traditional duplication system. We duplicate our object, okay? And then we got to be very careful not to move it, and I accidentally moved it because I'm using my little pen tablet here, not a mouse. Let's zero out the transforms on this thing again. Get it back to its original location. Okay, so now we have two objects that are sharing the exact same space. If you look at my outliner, I got sphere 3 and sphere 6. They're the exact same shape in the exact same space. So now we'll go back to the Object pull-down menu, and you can see that one of the choices we have in here is Mirror, and we're going to do Global X, and it pops that second duplicated object where we want to go. Now on the surface, this is not a bad way of working because we have duplicate geometry that's identical to each other. However, the big problem with this, especially when we're sculpting a neutral pose, a sculpt pose, is that there's not a relationship between these. Oftentimes, when we're sculpting, we want to be able to see how the impacts of an edit are going to be immediately translated to the other side of the mesh. It's a little bit easier for us to consume the totality of our sculpture when we can see the totality of our sculpture right now, okay? We want to work efficiently. We want the one side to be identical to the other, but if I was to change the location of this knee, for example, maybe I want the knee back there, and I want to start getting all this other stuff, you know, kind of pointed this way a little bit. Well, a small change on one side is not going to be reflected on the other side using that traditional object level duplication. Thus enter the role of modifiers. And I'm going to hit the undo key a number of times here to kind of get some things back in order. I don't need this second duplicated object, so I'm just going to select it with my box tool and hit the X key to delete it. And let me show you the alternative way, which it's a little bit more advanced, but trust me, it's fantastic because it allows us to work much more intuitively inside of the scene itself. Okay, let's do it. We're going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to grab my sphere here. Let's fire off the good old transform tool. I like doing that just because it gives me a good spot check of where the origin point is. Now with modifiers, you don't actually really need to worry about the origin point all that much, but it is good just to kind of know where it is. If you look at my shoulder, there it is. The origin point's right where my tool handles is. It's right in the middle of the geometry. So we'll come back to that idea in a minute. All right, so let's create the modifier itself. Now the cool thing about working with the modifiers is that it's not going to duplicate the object. It's going to give us the impression that we have two copies of the exact same thing, but we're only ever going to have a singular object inside of our outliner, which is going to make it a little bit easier for us to manage these huge collections of objects. Let's go ahead and fire it off real fast. With the sphere selected, I'm going to go over into my tool properties, and specifically I'm looking for this guy right here, the one with the little blue wrench icon next to it. Okay, that's the modifier pull down menu. And with my sphere selected, under the modifier list, we're going to go into the generate section, and we're looking for one that says mirror. And you can see right off the top, boof, we have two copies of this sphere, which is pretty neat. The great thing about working with these modifiers is that they are live tools. We can still go in and make changes to their properties at any time, which is pretty neat. Previously, when we were doing the object level mirroring, once we completed the operation, all of those tool properties were gone, so we can't go back in time and adjust some parameters. So we can adjust the axis that we're mirroring these on. We can even do multiple axes at the same time. It's just really kind of cool. Now, the thing that I would recommend that you look at specifically is unchecking the merge. We still want both of these shapes to be discontiguous polygonal shapes. We want to be able to control them independently, and you'll see why here in a minute. So with the merge option disabled, it's not going to weld these points together if they were overlapping a little bit. Okay, so that's pretty cool. Let's go and take this idea and do the exact same thing on my upper arm here. Same idea, same principle. We have the arm selected. This time, really highlight and notice that the origin point is in the center of the geometry. It's not in the center of the origin or center of the scene itself. Go into my little wrench icon here, the modifiers. Same thing, we're gonna choose mirror, and oh, that's unfortunate, isn't it? Look where it mirrored it. It mirrored at the location of the center point, which shouldn't be too much of a surprise. That's where the computer is understanding that where this object resides in the larger context of our three-dimensional scene. That's not a big surprise. But man, it'd be great if we could use the origin point of something else to determine where this copy is going to go. And that's why these modifiers are neat, because we can do exactly that. Check it out. Over here, we have this little eyedropper tool, this mirror object. This allows us to choose an object inside of our scene and use that object's center point as the location for mirror, which is pretty cool. So we can either click on the list, and I have a crazy long list here. If you're like me and you're a little bit more visual, you can use the eyedropper. And I'm noticing here that the sphere, the origin points in the center, also the objects that create the central mass of my character are pretty much in line with the center of the x-axis. Point being is that we have a couple different objects whose origin points are exactly what we want. Let me go back into this one. I'm going to grab my little eyedropper tool, and I'm simply going to click on this center shape here, way up here, and boop. So now we loaded this object center point into this area here, and we're getting the correct mirror operation that we're after. Now, the great thing about working with the mirroring tools is that now we can continue very quickly, I might add. Let's just do one more mirror. We can continue flushing out the total shape of our object without having to duplicate all of these shapes. We can also make changes. Check it out. I can make changes, and both sides change and update simultaneously, which is pretty cool, which allows me to explore the role and the impact of all of these simple shapes very, very quickly, especially when we use like the item transform, because then we can just go in, I can rotate, I can move, and I can start flushing out and defining what that pose is and be able to preview that pose inside of my true perspective three-dimensional view, which is pretty fantastic. Now, at the end of the day, when we're done working with this mirror modifier, well, what do we do with it? it doesn't actually create, at the moment, true geometry that we can use. This is an instance preview. So the final stage, once we're happy, and we're ready to go on to the sculpt stage, we need to apply the modifier, because there's not selectable geometry over here at the moment, right? I can't go in, so I'm on my upper arm mesh object. I can go into this one, double click on it, hit L. I can work on this. L selects all the connected faces. I can work on this shape till the cows come home, but I can't select this copy over here. So once we're done, we're gonna need to ask the computer to kind of bake or create true selectable geometry for the polygons on the other side of the mesh. Now, this is called applying our modifiers, and it's a great time and a great opportunity for us to save a new version of our project files. We want to have a version of our project file that contains all of this information on it. This is kind of like the raw data that produces the shape. In case we ever want to go back and make a change, a big structural change to the pose or the location and rotation of all of these objects, having that file handy is going to be pretty neat. Okay, I'm happy with this though. So let's apply this modifier so we can get selectable, workable geometry on both sides of my upper arm. Now inside the modifier list, I apologize, it's very, very small. The top row of our modifier list, we have a whole series of icons, the last of which is this little pull-down menu. And you gotta be in object mode in order to do this. This down arrow right there, and I apologize, it is tiny. This down arrow pulls out a little list. And there it is. It's the first one in the list itself, and it's apply. The moment we apply that object or that modifier to our object, a couple things instantly change. You can see that we now have a new object, or excuse me, the same object inside of our scene, and we have new geometry on both sides of that axis. If I hit the tab key and go into edit mode, voila, we have selectable geometry on the original side, but now that mirrored geometry that was created with the modifier is now selectable and workable as well. So these modifiers make working with mirrored information quick, easy, painless, and incredibly powerful. I would really encourage you to use modifiers, especially the mirroring modifier, in your workflow for your animal.